Hello, and welcome to Obliterate the Construct. This is part 2 of our interview with Sarah Gamm. Make sure to check out part 1 at the link in the episode description. And please hit those subscribe and like buttons on YouTube. We're still a new show and need your help working out that algorithm to help us get in front of a wider audience. And turn on alerts or notifications to keep up with our current releases. If you're listening on other platforms, your ratings go a long way to helping us expand our reach there as well. We also love receiving comments and questions from you on all these platforms or on our socials, so please send those our way. If you'd like to support this independent show financially and join the community that we're developing, please sign up on our Patreon, where we have a $5 per month supporter tier and a free option at the link in the description, and follow us on our socials. Thanks for listening and enjoy. When you're talking about archangels, that's a pretty Christian approach, although they are mentioned in Islam as well. Is there a relation to those constructs between your practice and the biblical and other interpretations in holy books of these angels? Is that different?
Everybody can interact and can talk with them. So angels are associated with religion because we humans did that. We put angels in buckets. So angels have been around since before the Bible said that they're here. Some of them, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them are aliens. The woo isn't so woo anymore. As quantum physics develops, that also starts proving more of the spiritual side of things. This all is about love and light. As cheesy as that sounds, it truly does boil down to love. And that's a part of, I think contact is approaching it from love instead of shooting it down or see something and shoot it. Like, that's not what you do. Every once in a while, there's a little bit of extra light that I know it's the fairies that are around. Trees talk. They talk to each other. They talk to us. There is actually a Persian saying to give it to the trees. So if there's a tree that is like outside of your house and you've had a bad day, touch the tree, give it to the tree, and the tree will take it back to the ground and keep you rooted.
Regarding the various classifications of these NHI or non-human beings and entities. You mentioned Arcturians. In your bio, you mentioned angels. I know you've had even a more profound list of encounters as well. How do you differentiate, and what does that say about who we are, and why are we just now seemingly becoming more aware of this on a wider scale?
Yeah, I think we're becoming more aware because of social media and internet and everybody's talking about it. I think there's just more of an awareness that it's also becoming less woo-woo and more real. It's not so woo-woo anymore that there's scientific studies proven trees and plants have consciousness, that water has consciousness. There's that water freezes and can give messages, and I forget the scientist name that does that. Veda. We have so much scientific evidence now that the woo isn't so woo anymore. It's pretty cool to see quantum as quantum physics develops, that also starts proving more of the spiritual side of things, and that you could send energy from one part of the planet to the other, and there are scientific studies that have proven that that's actually happened. So think of prayers. Your energy and prayers actually can reach somebody in a millisecond. um
And somebody not necessarily living or here on Earth. That's kind of
yeah.
the whole point.
Yeah, it's an incredible time to be alive and to witness this right now, but it also sucks. This is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. The other part of the question was about classification, and
Oh, yeah, sorry.
how do you discern between these different types of entities?
How I discern, you mean like between good and bad, or just like what I see like angels or something?
All of it. I mean, yeah, it doesn't
Um,
necessarily have to be this binary of good and bad, just,
yeah.
different types of entities because there's so
Yeah.
many.
So, yeah, when I connect with angels, I have a different feeling with them around me. Can sometimes their energy feels different. And so when I have a loved one, like one of my grandparents that comes around me, there are different signs and there are different things that happen versus angel energy. So, angel energy is a higher frequency than what a loved one would come in as. Same as I'll keep saying Arcturian because that's what I mentioned earlier. So, when Arcturians come in, their energy is very, very different from me. So, I know who it is pretty much immediately. Um, and then here's the cat again.
Can I
So,
ask, like, the first time that let's say the first time that you met an Arcturian,
mhm.
or encountered one, how, if you had no prior baseline for that energy to know that, this energy equals Arcturian, how did you come up with that?
Oh, I like that. I didn't really know. I had to Google things later because I had no idea. They gave me symbols, and so I'm just like free writing in my journal, and I'm writing symbols. I didn't know what they meant, and so I went to Google later, and then texted one of my mentors and teachers, and she was like, "Oh yeah, that's so and so," and so I was like, "Oh, Arcturian." So I'd like go to Google Arcturian, and like the first thing that came up is what I saw. And then, like, one of the descriptions on one of the websites talked about them being of love and light and wanting to help heal people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, so this all makes sense. Yeah, an early practitioner in the spiritual world, Google tends to be your best friend, and then reaching out for others for help. I ended up buying it's like extraterrestrial encyclopedia, I think is what it's called. I forget, but I got it from Amazon, and that also has actually helped a lot. The entity that visited me at night one night, I actually first went to that encyclopedia and was like, okay, it looked like this, but it didn't look like this. But it's like it's not a front of it, like it's not 100% of what's out there encyclopedia. It's just a small chunk of NHI of races, so I'd go to that and I'd look at that. So yeah, so it's a matter of Googling, asking friends and researching.
So some like all source analysis taking place.
Yeah, yeah, I like
Okay,
that. Yes, all
cool.
source.
That's good.
That's good.
Yeah, because I mean, some people are always concerned about discernment and deception and things like that. So I think, would you agree that it is important to actually go to other sources and other people rather than just taking your own, either whatever message you receive or your own intuition in some cases, if you're a novice at this, or, it's your first experience with an entity? Is that the smarter path?
I mean, I'm an extrovert, so I got to talk to people. So I always like getting second opinions. I also have been a SAR synthetic aperture radar image scientist for a good chunk of my career. So that data, the imagery looks like sonar on a boat, and it's kind of blurry and blobology. And so you are taught you have to have a second set of data point to produce your analysis. So that's kind of my science brain's always prevalent, and I'm always asking questions, especially if I know somebody else has the answer. Um, I will say some things that I have experienced I've kept internally, and that's because it's harder for the pill to swallow. And until I could get that pill down and soak with it and let and marinate with it, that's when I will go to somebody else and ask them. But I mean, Google's an amazing thing, right? So why not look up stuff or phone a friend or reach out to somebody to ask if they know, like, hey, I just saw this pink boot. What's that mean? I'm like, wait, that's an Arcturian. Arcturian was wearing. I'm making that up. Guys, don't write that down. But I'm looking at a pink boot right now. Yeah, ask for help and ask away, but also know if it's something personal, keep it private as long as you need to. But words have power. So as soon as you put that out into the ether that, hey, I had this blue being visit me in my bedroom, and that also helps you remember it too, because a lot of spiritual things that happen, they get a data dump and they get ejected. So words have power and meaning behind them, and maybe somebody else could help you out.
Yeah. So do you think I'm starting to lean more towards this theory based on some of my experiences that, and I wonder if you agree with it, that there is an element to reality that has to do with the way that that thought forms, that something about the collective unconscious, if you will, around these topics. Earlier you mentioned like the more we discuss these things, the more awareness around them there is, and maybe that's why there's a spike or an increase in experiences. And this theory that I'm leaning more towards now is this notion that these thought forms, that there's this co-creative aspect to reality, that yes, these beings and entities are all around us all the time, it seems, in because some of them seem to exist beyond space-time, and we're kind of stuck in this perception of space-time. Do you agree with that there's something to this notion, that not necessarily that just by thinking about something or speaking it, like you mentioned, like helps it be created, but maybe, I don't know, do you kind of get where I'm going with that?
Absolutely. So I think you're touching on time is not linear and manifesting.
Yeah, manifesting. Yeah, there you go. That's a good
Yeah.
way to put it.
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, there's a really good video out there that's not new. It's over 10 years old that explains from a scientific perspective up to the 10th dimension, which is proven by physicists that we do have 10 dimensions. And from from the spiritual side of things, 10D is where God resides. So or source or whoever you might worship or believe in. And so that's where God could be everywhere and listen to everyone's prayers at the same time, because time's not linear. God can be everywhere. Source can be everywhere and listen to you and be there for you and give you, if I think I'm getting a hug from an angel and you do too, that could be happening at the same time because time's not real. And so from that aspect and of thinking about energy, energy is everywhere. Time isn't a factor, the energy is. And so from all of this energy, we can be co-creators. We can manifest. We can have intention of some things and then it'll become reality. So I'm trying to think of an example right now, and now that I'm like speaking quickly, I can't think of one thing, even though stuff happens all the time. But like once in a while, okay, there was one time I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love that coat. It is so expensive. I wanna wait for that coat to go on sale." And, like, a week later, I got an email from, whatever company or whatever, like REI or something, 'cause I'm a hiker, so it was like a down coat, and I got an email saying the coat was on sale, and I'm like, "Did I do that? That has to be, like, there are no coincidences, there are only synchronicities, young lady." So it could be little stuff like that, like you manifest, and there's, people that have manifested so much more than just a yellow coat that I wear. But when we speak about it, that also is power because that is energy. That energy comes from our voice. What is our body? Our body is of love and light. We are all God's co creators, right? So everything has meaning and everything has power, everything has energy. And yeah, I don't know where else I'm sorry, that really digressed.
No, okay, that's great. So let's take that and use it to go into a virtual event that you've been taking part in, and I think the next one is coming up soon, the Psionic Summit,
Mhm.
run by Ubiquity University and a few other
Mhm.
organizations. What, like, looking at the notion of manifesting, do you see a connection between that and what some of these psionic assets are doing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we'll call, I'm thinking of when Jake Barber had talked about being able to control, or maybe it wasn't him, it was a person. I'm so sorry if I can't remember who is who now. There's a lot of interviews that I also haven't watched, so I'm sorry. Um, but to be able to control the aircraft, and the aircraft, once they like dropped the link with it, it like plummeted or something. Um, so I think that a part with Ambiguities University, like what we're discussing is going back to the everything is energy situation. And I think we really, as humans, we use even less of our brains than what scientists say we do. we have so much to unlock and so much that is controlled from our upbringing and our cultures and our religions and everything that it's hard to imagine how much power we truly do have just behind the skull that we don't even know is there.
Yeah. So you mentioned religions. That's another component of these topics that sometimes gets discussed tangentially, but I personally think it's very important as a one of the dominant structures of society that will be important for disclosure to happen, whether you're talking about the more government centric disclosure or a more democratized or both. People, you're going to run into people who are super religious, who have certain views, who have certain constructs through which they view the world and through which they view these extraordinary experiences. And then on a larger level, you'll have the actual structures and organizations that will possibly shut down conversation among their followers around these topics. How do you view this as being like religion as being part of a post disclosure world?
Um, I think religion is important. I mean, church is home to me. I was raised religious, and any church I go in will always feel like home. It feels like love, and it feels like, my childhood. Um, Especially older churches in Europe where you walk in and there might be a moss growing on the outside of the walls before you go inside the sanctuary. Um, so I think of it as still an important construct that we have, that this world isn't religion or UAPs or disclosure. We are still in the same ocean together. We just have to figure out how to swim and how to behave and how to go about life together. Um, I mean, we're still going to need preachers and reverends and priestesses, everything for comfort, for going to. So, I know one of my preachers I had growing up, it was more of a conversation with them about some stuff that was happening in life versus a preacher behind the pulpit. It was a friend, it was a confidant, it was somebody you could tell anything to and they weren't supposed to judge you. I don't know. I don't know why I said supposed. So I think it's still going to be an important part of the future going forward. It just might be a little messy at first, trying to find how to swim together.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So in your bio, you mentioned that you, speaking of priestesses, that you are an ordained priestess of the Order of Melchizedek. Can you explain
Yes.
what that is?
Yeah. So when you get ordained, you could just pick your title. So I thought priestess was really cool. I thought about maybe picking reverend just because that's what people are going to think of that they want to hear. But priestess sounds pretty badass. But the Order of Melchizedek, so in the state of Virginia, to practice Reiki, the Virginia considers it a religious practice, so you have to be
Oh,
ordained.
wow. I didn't know that.
So
Whoa.
if they changed the rule, it happened within the past like 5-ish years, but that's what I was told when I first started learning different healing modalities that required you to touch a patient or a client, not a patient. Well, I guess maybe a patient's the right word still. So when you touch them, it's considered a religious practice, and so you had to be ordained.
Wow. Okay, that's
Mhm.
new information for me.
Mhm.
Have you had any interesting experiences through Reiki? Can you talk about some of those?
I So what I like to do, I usually don't just do Reiki by itself because of my IET. IET is integrated energy therapy. The slogan is it gets issues out of the tissues. And so Reiki is more of a surface or a level healing. It could release anxiety. It can start healing maybe some trauma, some wounds, depression, it could hit that. And IET will actually go into trigger points and you will pull stuff out, including things from past lives. And that healing is through angels. Archangel Ariel is the lead angel that you work with through this healing modality. So, what I like to do is what is needed for the client or the patient is what is provided, and I've always seen those two energies blended together. But through IET, I do tap into past lives, so I could bring trauma forward from a past life and help release it for the client. And that through that, I've even seen and experienced it myself. I'm so sorry. I have just randomly started crying and not known why when a certain trigger point would be hit. So, like, there's different ones, like your spleen is for something. Of course, there's the throat chakra for communication, third eye, and different ones. And so, when a trigger point was hit at one point, I just start crying. Like, why am I crying? I don't know what I'm crying. I have to release something. So, something is being activated. And so, then what is taken away, the angels replaced with love. So, what is removed is always filled with something good. So, that void can't have any ickiness that goes back into it.
Do you feel that as the practitioner, you said when you start crying, or as the person who's having this done on them?
So I can feel the emotions of the client sometimes as well. It just depends on the person. Sometimes they don't like me speaking out loud of what I see. They just want to lay there in silence, kind of like when you get a massage, you want quiet. And then other times people are like, give all of it to me. Whatever you see, I want to know what you're seeing. I want to know what you're feeling. And so then I'm open and I tell them. So it just depends on the person, but I usually can feel what they're feeling as well. And I sometimes will cry with them or I'll hold back tears because I have to hold a safe space. So I have to hold it in to give them the safe space to cry and to let it out. So it just varies on the situation. So, like, if it's one of my best friends I am providing the healing for, I will cry with her because it's my best friend. But if it's, a stranger, I definitely wouldn't do that because holding safe space to let somebody know that they can release this, that I'll hold on to them while they do it is really important.
Wow. And is this related to what you mentioned as well, relating to angel messages, or is that something different?
Yeah, so that all of it's a part of everything together. So, with past life trauma, angels are also there with you. So, angel messages, when I do a psychic medium reading, the psychic portion is connecting to angels and to guardian angels because they know your future. They know all of your futures. They have been with you for all of your lives. So, I can get those type of angel messages as well during psychic readings, but angels are very present in pretty much every healing session. Even if people go to get a massage, you'll likely have Archangel Raphael there with you because he is the angel of healing and angel of travel. So you could pray to him while you're traveling.
Wow. Okay. So for people who are not familiar with any of these topics, except for maybe
Sorry.
through the religious prism, I mean, when you're talking about archangels, that's a pretty uh, Christian approach, although they are mentioned in Islam as well. Is there a relation to those constructs between your practice and the biblical and other like interpretations in holy books of these angels? Is that different? And how does that translate to people in other parts of the world and other cultures and from religious backgrounds who may have no idea about those constructs? Can they still
Yeah.
interact with those types of entities, and what does that look like for them?
Yeah, everybody can interact with them. So I'll start there. Everybody can interact and can talk with them. So angels are associated with religion because we humans did that. We put angels in buckets, same as heaven and hell. We put those in buckets. We categorize, like we'd already talked about earlier. We like to categorize things and associate stuff to be good or else you go to hell. And so angels have been around since before the Bible said that they are here. And there's actually an alien race that are angels as well. So they technically, some of them, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them are aliens. And I mean, there's so much in religion about them but they predate religion. And I mean, even, Egyptian hieroglyphs. It was Isis with the wings and other hieroglyphs and other goddesses and gods in Egyptian culture. I don't know. I get frustrated with putting things in buckets. And of course, I do it myself. I'm guilty. I got to point that finger back around. But yeah, yeah, that is we were raised to do that. But what's neat is, Archangel Gabriel, she was in the Bible, and she was the one that announced Jesus was coming. And she is still an angel that, like, I talk to. Angels actually don't have sex. Typically not a he or she, it's an it, but because we're human and we give sexes to things, I usually associate her with it as a she. Some people say he. Um, but it's just more of a feminine energy to me. But she is the angel of communication. So if you're, speaking on a podcast, you say, Archangel Gabriel, please allow me to say the right words and whatever. If you're going into an interview or a public speaking situation, she's the one to talk to. So there are different archangels that have different jobs, just like we have jobs here. Archangel Michael, so he's, a part of religion as well, but he's God's protector, but he's also the protector of, EMTs and first responders and the police force. So the police, one of my brothers a cop, and they all know Archangel Michael is present for them, protecting them all the time. So um or Saint Michael. I know, Catholicism has saints, and so Saint Michael is the same thing. Um, so yeah, so I get the religious buckets of the angels, but it's so much more than that. They're here for everyone. They can't affect our free will. They can't inject until we ask. So sometimes you could ask broadly, and other times you could ask narrowly, like, I want that yellow coat. Please help me get that yellow coat. And then other times it's like, "Oh, I'm kind of cold right now. Maybe a blanket, maybe a coat." And so they could help intervene, but you actually need to ask them for help and they'll be there.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. All right. So, in your opinion, do you think that religions shaped or formed certain constructs and classifications of some of these beings in a way to shape our reality and limit our access to certain information and capacities that we had?
I think so because it provides a bias. And then there ends up being confirmation bias from that. So, and that keeps going down bias rabbit holes, and that becomes your culture and what you know. I think our biases from some of those religious foundations hurt us in the long run, us as in humans.
Yeah. And so with the let's see. So I was part of this call and discussion that took place yesterday, organized by the Pari Center in Italy, which is this hub of consciousness. And they spoke with two Catholic filmmakers. One's a journalist for the Vatican, and the other is I believe, a professor at Notre Dame University. And they were working on this project to create a film to introduce the topic of UFOs and non human intelligences to the Catholic public in a way for them to be able to have at least some of the discussion that we're having now. And the call yesterday, we kind of screened the film and then had a discussion with filmmakers and the director of the Party Center. And it was an interesting discussion, but oftentimes I felt like it was meandering into the realm of the way that they viewed, generally speaking, the way that the conversation viewed Catholicism integrating these concepts in a post disclosure scenario was almost always trying to make NHIs and UFOs fit into Catholicism
Mhm.
rather than maybe the other way around. It was this like absolutism and anthropomorphism and centrality of this pre existing human structure of religion, in this case, Catholicism, and making this seemingly pervasive, all encompassing phenomena fit into it rather than the other way around. And
Mhm.
I don't know if anyone else noticed that, but I found that troubling and very human. And that kind of goes against all of what we're discussing. Do you have an idea of like how religions can, because I mean, I hate to keep harping on religions, but they're an important part of our
It's
society
important.
for a
Yeah,
lot of
this is
people.
important.
And even more so in other parts of the world. You know, the US has a lot of agnostic people or spiritual but not religious. Like, what do you, how do you think religions should approach this? Is that the right way to do it? Just to, for their own survival, or is there a better way?
Um, I think what you just said for their own survival is important here because that religion is a foundation to a lot. I mean, "In God we trust" is on our money. So, yeah, I guess it would be more about survival, but why wouldn't each denomination put themselves in the center? So I get why, a film or something would be displayed from one view versus the other. So I grew up Presbyterian and with a lot of Catholics in my town. So my dad was raised Catholic and then converted over to Presbyterian at some point. And so I had a lot of those flares growing up, a lot of both. I could see, Presbyterian from my perspective in my church that I went to church pretty much every week. I still go whenever I go home and I visit my family. My daddy preaches, so I go and listen to him. I love it. Love, love, love listen to his sermons and listen to him talk. Yeah, I could see, Presbyterians not liking the Catholic view and vice versa. And so why not make something from your own perspective because that's what they know. I mean, that was my culture growing up was one view and thinking, going to a Catholic funeral and hearing Hail Marys for the rosary. I didn't understand it, but I sat there and respected it, but I wouldn't, put that in a film. So, I don't know how to answer it other than I see why they would make something from their perspective, and it would be for survival because there's so much money and culture involved with every religion around the world.
Hmm. And do you think that's like, do you think that would negatively impact the way in which humanity integrates these phenomena uh, once, there is a wider disclosure? Or do you think
I
that
don't think
it's
so.
sustainable?
Yeah, I don't think it'll negatively impact because religions already, I'm going to put it in quotes, negatively impact the world because of wars. How many wars have been started because of religions throughout our history? So it's already happened. I don't think it could be negatively impacted more than what it already has. Lives have been lost because of religion wars.
Is there a more hopeful message than that? Like, is there an ideal way that you would like to see it done? If
Ideal,
I can rephrase that.
yeah, ideal way, like we all are on the same page, which would never happen because we're humans and we have free will and we have egos. But ideally, I even there's no doubt in my mind that once we'll call us, spaceship landing on the lawn of the White House. Once that happens, I know some people are going to be like, cool, I got bills to pay. All right, keep going. So I would just like to see, I guess, what would happen. But ideally, the world is still going to go on. There shouldn't be wars over a spaceship landing on the White House because people are still gonna have bills to pay. You still gonna have to cook supper. You're gonna have stuff to do and kids stuff. You gotta get kids to school in the morning. Ideally, I hope it doesn't change a whole lot. Although I guess it will because technology and everything else as well. But yeah, I don't know. Ideally, that's hard to imagine.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, some people wonder if this is just the nature of being human, and kind of like our purpose here is to actually experience this type of living, while being more aware that there is more to reality in life than just this.
Yeah. We're waking up. We're remembering finally. We're remembering reincarnation, and we're remembering we're not alone, and we're remembering so much, and it is murky and it sucks and it is hard. And then you question everything. The awakening is not easy, but I think we're getting there.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you had any experiences with entities outside of meditative or uh, those types of states?
Well, I have had a blue entity visit me at night and I was awake. Krypton's my witness. He's sleeping over there now. He's my witness. It happened. So that was a few summers ago where I had an entity in my bedroom. I have also seen brown mountain lights and some orbs that came in while the Egypt trip. So we were all in the Nile on a boat, and there was, I think, almost everyone in the group was there. It was probably around 15, 20 of us. I don't know if I ever got a head count, but everybody saw it. Some folks were able to get their night vision, scopes out, and were able to record it a little bit, some of these orbs that we saw. So I've had a few things that I have been able to see with my own eyeballs and not my third eye.
Yeah, wow. Can you describe the blue being experience in some detail?
Yeah.
Because that's come up. The blue being thing has come up a lot. And actually, the last guest I interviewed when this airs, Dr. Andrea Alani, he's had blue being experiences as well, and he described them as
Okay.
similar to some depictions of Hindu gods.
Yeah. Well, I know when I talked about it with Ross Coulthart, he had also interviewed a lot of people that have encounters with blue beings as well. So mine was, it was, I was sleeping. So as a medium, you're woken up sometimes at night, and it's by things moving in the house, creaking, loved ones trying to get your attention, or spirit guides, or whatever, you name it. It's second nature for me to be woken up and to be like, I'm a human right now. I gotta sleep, guys. So I was woken up, and there was an entity pacing back and forth in my bedroom. And I was like, what the fork? Like, I don't got time for this. And so I tried to like tell it to go away like I normally do. And Krypton, he's my like, spiritual protector. So he's actually like fought things for me, like growled and fought things. And so he sits up in bed and he looks at it and he's watching it too. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not asleep. I'm actually awake right now. This is really here. And so he starts watching it, and it's just pacing back and forth. And so then I was like, well, okay, I'll start asking it questions like, you need some water? Do you need anything? And eventually I got to a point where I was like, you need a pillow? Do you need a sleeping bag? Like, what's going on here? How long are you going to be here?
What were you
And he would
feeling
never respond.
when you first saw it? Like what was going through you emotionally?
Emotionally, I was first, when I see something, I tap into if it's good or bad. If it's bad, I eject it out and tell it to go. Like, I do protection and get Archangel Michael in and get a sword out. So I kind of get a sense if it's good or bad, and then I look at Krypton's reaction as well, because he is a very good gauge if something's good or bad, and he seemed fine with it. And so I just kept watching it, and eventually it like stopped, and it looked to like towards the window, and there was like a portal thing that opened up that was kind of like a pinkish color, and it looked like it was communicating through it, and it lasted, that was maybe 2 seconds or not even that, and the portal went away, and it started pacing back and forth again, and I'm like, and it had this really beautiful sword. I'm so sorry. I have more hiccups than anything right now. So I had this beautiful sword that it's made of crystal, and it changed colors kind of. I don't know. It was really beautiful. And so I eventually, like, Krypton laid back down, and I'm like, all right, yeah, I need to get some sleep too. And like, okay, make yourself at home. You need something, you know where the water is. And so I laid back down and went back to sleep. And I just kept getting a sense that it was letting me know that what was coming, I'm safe from. And this was the summer before I was filmed to be in the program. So I think it was informing me that I'm protected and I'm doing the right thing, and no matter what happens that I'm going to be okay and that they're aware of what's coming in my life. What it looked like was didn't have any hair. It had like ridges and it was more of a blue color, and it was nighttime and there were no lights on. So I can't say exactly what shade of blue, but I felt like there was like almost like a purplish type sheen to the skin. But there were ridges on both sides and in the middle. There were ridges on it and had slightly like bigger almond shaped eyes, like 6 to 7 feet tall. Like it was super tall. Like I would say at least like 7 feet tall. And it was its uniform was something more like from Star Trek, like something plain, simple. And it was darker colored than its skin. So again, I don't know what fully color it was, but yeah, it was just pacing around. I'm like, all right, now I'm gonna go back to sleep. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Did you feel anything in your physical body when this was happening?
No, I felt like it was, safe and it was protecting. And but it was like, guarded the London Palace. It didn't look at me. It did just kept on doing its job and its mission. And the sword like glowed or something. It was really pretty.
And do you feel like there's anything that besides the filming for the program, do you feel like there's anything else that was going on in your life or anything that you had perhaps done that allowed this to manifest in this way?
Um, Honestly, I think it was probably, some of my spiritual practice as well, because that was around the time I was going through IET training. I did 3 separate training sessions for that to be an advanced practitioner, and that requires more healing energy to come in, maybe more protection from the other side or something. So that I hadn't been asked that question before and I hadn't thought about it, so thank you, but I think that was around the time I was doing IET and also thinking about, like, where is this going? Where is this meaning my practices, my meditation, my business that I was trying to start, like, where is this going? And I think that was letting me know wherever it goes, I'm good.
Wow, that's amazing. Have you had any other encounters with that being?
I actually have not. I'm asked that. I haven't asked for it to come back either, or maybe it's come back and I just didn't wake up, but I have not.
Hmm. Did you ever set any sort of intentions or make any requests to have more physical experiences before this happened?
No, I never did. It was a surprise to me.
Wow. Okay. And what about any other physical experiences after that?
Yeah, those wouldn't be with entities. Those would be like brown mountain lights and seeing orbs and lights and yeah, it was really neat. Our encounter in Egypt the night before we saw them, we set the intent. We hadn't departed on the Nile yet. We were down in Luxor. Nope, we weren't in Luxor yet. I just lied to you. I forget actually where we were now. It was a blur. We went to a lot of places, but we were at a resort somewhere and at the pool. And some of the guys were like, "Hey, Sarah, use your abilities. Maybe we could conjure something." And I'm like, you know what? That sounds fun. So we went outside and I didn't know what I was doing, set an intention. One of my good friends, he's a psychic medium in Australia. So he could summon in orbs and talk with UAP and communicate with them. So I texted him and was like, "Hey, how do I do this?" And of course, with the time change, he didn't respond yet. So kind of winged it. And it was very, very cloudy that night, but I did get like a response. And the response was a feeling and a knowing when I put the intention out and I made everybody else that was sitting there like have the intention of love and light. We don't want to hurt you. We might want to take photos and videos, but it still won't, it'll be to support you. And I got a response back immediately. It was like, "Not tonight, tomorrow night." And I was like, "All right." So we stayed out there and we were just chit-chatting and it was still pretty early on in the trip. We really didn't know each other. So the next night we get on the Nile cruise boat. So at this point we are in Luxor and everybody's sitting in a circle telling stories and sharing who they are. And there was there wasn't many Americans on the trip, so it was really neat being a minority and hearing other folks' experiences, whether it be in the UFO realm or spiritual or meditation or whatever throughout their life. And as we're sharing these stories, I look over and I'm like, anybody else see that? And so the guy sitting beside me, it was an orb. It looked like a flare gun. And it was like something that just like kind of like went out and I'm like, that wasn't a shooting star. And then by the time like the third or fourth one came around, him and I were like, we gotta say something. And it lasted, I would say, for close to 10 minutes. We were having orbs, and one of the guys had an airplane tracker app, no aircraft in the area, and they were all pretty low on the horizon, and they would like fly in different ways. Like some would go up and some, so it wasn't just like a flare going off. And there was one that was actually coming closer to us, and we all got excited and started screaming and clapping. And of course my science brain, so because they were low on the horizon and with the light pollution there and the smog, they were orange. And so I'm like, okay, well, they're orange because of where they are on the horizon and everything that we're looking through, so that's the color that comes through. But yeah, we don't like, it was really cool, and it was responding to us. We were like, okay, take a different path, or somebody would say something, and then a second or two later it might do it, or maybe it was a minute later and something would happen. But there was one that was like taking a different path and like maneuvered a bit, and it was really cool. That was my first time really like summoning them in. And then I, of course, messaged my friend in Australia, and I was losing my marbles. I was so excited. And I was like, is this what this is like? And he was like, yes, you did it. Like, I also helped boost and like send them to you as well. And I'm like, we did it. It was really cool. It was such an exciting moment to, my science brain still kept trying to discount it and not accept what was happening. And yeah, to get that validation from my friend was really cool.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow. Have you had any experiences with what would be considered more nature centric entities and beings?
Would you say nature?
Yeah,
Like
like elemental or
in the trees?
yeah,
Oh, with faith. I think my experiences with them, I see like when I'm out in the woods, because nature is my sanctuary. That is my church now. I more of a sense get a feeling of not being alone. And the place that I go very often has a significant amount, like a lot of land in the US is Native American energy there. So I always feel very protected and very loved. And then every once in a while, after like a snow, I'm the only one in the woods. I'm the only tracks walking through and trudging through the snow. And I could just feel all of the energy around me playing with me and enjoying being there and the only ones there. And so, and every once in a while I could see like a little glitter or something. Like I know that's snow, but every once in a while there's a little bit of extra light that I know it's the fairies that are around. But nature, like trees talk. They talk to each other. They talk to us. There is actually a Persian saying to give it to the trees. So if there's a tree that is like outside of your house and you've had a bad day, touch the tree, give it to the tree, and the tree will take it back to the ground and keep you rooted along with the tree. So one of my Persian friends told me that many years ago before my spiritual journey, and that stuck with me. And I'm like, holy crap, there's something to that.
I like that.
So yeah, so nature has all kinds of different entities. I actually have a story. I saw pixies at a place actually near Linville Gorge where I saw the Brown Mountain Lights. There was an
That's in North
area I went
Carolina as well.
to, and I was, huh?
That's in North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina. Not too far from Asheville, probably like an hour or something away from Asheville. But there was a house that I went to near like a hotel not too far from Linville Gorge where the Brown Mountain Lights are seen. And I walk up to it and I was just like, there's pixie energy here, and pixies are a little bit different than fairies. They're a little bit more mischievous, and um so it was really neat. And that one of the people I told, which I never would just like blurt this out to, strangers and muggles, and the woman I blurted it out to was like, "Oh yeah, I know. They mess with me all the time." And I'm like, "Wait, what? Did we just become best friends?"
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, okay. Lastly, and with some of my past guests and some of the other guests we've had on this show, the notion of the divine feminine has come up a lot. And this idea that the way that the masculine energies have dominated this earth for so long now, especially in the West, and turned the notion of the masculine into something that's dominating and negative and controlling, departing from what it was meant to be, and maybe more in unison with the feminine. Has that come up at all for you in your experiences or your spiritual path? And if so, what can you say about that?
I think the feminine for me has come up because I feel like I've been stepping into my power, and that's the feminine side of the power, the balance. I was raised, two older brothers on a farm, so I was raised with a lot of masculine power and survival, and so it took me a long time to step into my feminine side and to understand that delicate love, that delicate way to view things, and to understand crying isn't a bad thing. Like, we should stop apologizing. When women cry, we tend to apologize for it, and we should stop that because it's who we are. It's a human thing. So I think like the stepping into more of the feminine power has been so enlightening, and I fought it. I fought it for a long time because of, surviving on a farm with brothers, and somehow I don't know how we didn't die doing half the stuff that we did, but not having to survive anymore. I can live and I can embrace all of who I am, and there's a balance. So I think that the feminine empowerment that is happening right now is such a good thing because it is so delicate. It is so strong. It is such a beautiful part of everybody to embrace. And I see more and more men embracing this femininity now, and it is so beautiful. And it is, of course, they do fight it because that's what, you're not raised to do, unfortunately. And so for me it was a rough journey finding that, finding the love for the feminine side. And then once I did, like, the floodgates are open. I joke that when I first started going to physics classes in undergrad, it took me a while for the light bulb to switch on. But once the light bulb was switched on, I was open to all of it. But it was hard to understand, especially if you had a bad teacher. It was hard to understand at first. And so that's how the spiritual journey has been as well, and then opening up to the feminine side of things and embracing all of it as a whole.
Mm, yeah. Wow. Thank you for that. Do you, and what would you say to men who will, most of whom will most likely be threatened by these notions and or feel like they're being attacked or things like that? It's commonly what I
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah, I would say change your perspective, because that's your ego feeling threatened and feeling attacked because it has to shed something that embraces change. And we incarnate to change and to learn and to grow. So embracing the change, and even if it's chipping slowly away at that iceberg, that's still progress. But yeah, change your perspective. Instead of feeling like it's a threat, change it to say, how can I adapt?
Yeah. And do you see these notions related in any way to these phenomena that we're discussing and the maybe the evolutionary path that some of these hint at for our species?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jake Barber's definitely onto something when he talked about it in his first couple of interviews that he did. There's, like I mentioned earlier, the good and the bad. There's a yin and a yang, and we have to have the masculine and the feminine to have a balance. And I think by this feminine side starting to wake up in everybody, because we have had, I'm thinking what comes to mind is the Barbie movie. And as great as that movie was, like, it had such a good message of, like, the patriarchy and what is expected of women and how much pressure we put on ourselves. I don't wanna go down that dialogue, but it was so impactful because we unfortunately have shut ourselves down because of what we think culture wants from us. And I think this feminine side is starting to melt a lot of that and embrace it and realizing that this all is about love and light. As cheesy as that sounds, it truly does boil down to love. And that's a part of, I think contact is approaching it from love instead of shooting it down or like see something and shoot it. Like that's not what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. And I think it's really this it's said a lot, but unconditional love. And the way I see that relating with these phenomena is that it's this way of being that sheds your ego and the notion of yourself as being strictly this individuated piece of consciousness and actually interconnected and you know embodying everything else around you, not just your idea of who you are. And if you live that way and be that way, then you you love everything else as much as you love yourself, and that's just yeah, you're more peaceful.
Yes. Yeah, you're not reactive to things anymore.
Yeah, awesome. Do you
No,
have any closing thoughts? Anything else that we didn't touch on today?
um, I don't think so, but thank you for asking me to be on.
Thank
It
you for being
still
here.
is surreal for me to be talking about all of this. 15-year-old Sarah never would have predicted what is happening right now in the world and then what I have been able to speak about. And so thank you.
Thank you for using your voice and for stepping out into the public. It's I know it was difficult and you faced a lot of backlash initially, but I'm glad you're in this space, and I'm glad you're on both sides of this, even though there shouldn't be sides, both the internal and the external. So
Yes,
thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Sarah.